Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to yet another exciting live immersive conversation on becoming a destination employer in the Great Resignation era, which is very meticulously curated by the Economic Times HR World and Randstad India. My name is Soumya, and I'm going to be your host for today's session. Today, we have come together with a powerful panel to share, reflect, and co create the playbook of becoming a destination employer in a VUCA world. The great resignation era is stepping into the new world of work and leading to an exodus of workforce from organizations. The employers have realized that being a great paymaster is not going to retain talent, but fostering a sensitive leadership sense will. A return to work approach will be harnessed with empathy, resilience, compassion, flexibility, and emotional intelligence skills. I know this sounds very interesting. So, without any further ado, I am elated to welcome the dynamic panel of speakers for this intriguing and a super promising conversation. Welcoming first is Arijit Pal Chaudhary, Executive Director, Head of Human Resources, and Head of Corporate Communications for Nomura Services India. Arijit joined Nomura Group in the year 2006, and in the last 13 years, he's managed roles of head of global compensation for wholesale corporate, and joint head of global compensation, apart from managing the multiple divisions. Joining us next is Bhuvna S., CMO Randstad India. Bhuvna is Chief Marketing Officer of Randstad India, one of country's leading HR service organizations. As the CMO, Bhuvna is responsible for driving all elements of marketing for the organization, including digital marketing, design, corporate communications, public relations, and market intelligence. Joining us next is Rajesh Kumar Singh, Global Head of HR for KPIT. Rajesh is an HR leader with experience across sectors ranging from pharma, IT, healthcare, banking, and telecom. He's known for setting up HR processes, re engineering them, and leading complex assignments. He's led teams in the entire gamut of HR, right from talent management, talent acquisition, comp and ben, plant and HR, and much more. Joining us next is Sneha Arora, Vice President Human Capital for Myntra. Sneha is part of the leadership team at Myntra and champions at building a people-centric and inclusive culture at Myntra. She's adept at working in fast-paced, diverse, and multicultural environments, and she has extensively worked towards driving large-scale organizational changes initiatives influencing across levels and geographies, coaching and partnering with the leaders to deliver results. And yes, joining us last is Vikas Bansal, CHRO for Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance. Vikas heads the human resource function, which includes recruitment, skill enhancement initiatives within the organization. He brings with him over 15 years of experience, having worked in leadership roles across the various business units and geographies with blue chip companies like Hindustan Unilever, Dr. Reddy's, and Hero Honda. I know this sounds like a super starlit panel. So, yes, before I hand over the frame for Bhuvna to take it forward, I would request our audience to keep sharing their questions during the session as well, and also keep them parked for the end because we'll definitely come back and find answers for all of them. So, yes, now the frame is all for Bhuvna to moderate and lead the discussion. Over to you, Bhuvna.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumya, so much for that lovely introduction. And yes, we do have an eminent panel with us, and I'm very excited to talk about this topic. I know all of us know that organizations were figuring out the new way of work through the pandemic, and not many predicted this change in the demand situation. Right? Nearly about 20 million workers have left their jobs, which has left countless companies in the lurch and which are desperate to attract new talent as well. I've been going through LinkedIn, and every second post on LinkedIn or the coverage in media is about the great resignation and how to attract and retain talent. The workplace dynamic has shifted tremendously, and no longer jobs are a means to an end, and workers increasingly expect their employers to provide benefits, allowances, and flexibility conducive to a work life balance that pre pandemic may have seemed unattainable. And if companies don't meet their needs, they will take their labor elsewhere. That's been the situation. Organizations have seized the moment and made an opportunity of it. Those who have done that have thrived through the Great Resignation era, creating a culture of belonging, putting people and purpose over profit, providing unique benefits have become BAU for organizations. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what Randstad has been doing as well. We've taken a number of initiatives to improve employee satisfaction and have become a destination employer. Our external and internal conversation is led with a human forward approach. That's our mission as well, which is a unique blend of tech and touch, which is important in the Great Resignation era. We're a great place to work, certified twice. And this has happened through the pandemic as well, which is again a very different phenomenon that every organization has seen. We've been winning various awards across initiatives and have not only been attracting great talent, but also advising our clients how to do so. We have with us, as I mentioned, an eminent panel that has been reimagining the parameters of their business and their most valuable employee relationships. I'm sure they have a few tips and tricks for us to become a destination employer. And it is my pleasure to be speaking with them today and learning from each one of you. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure the audience is looking forward to to this conversation as well. Without further ado, I'll come to Sneha first. Myntra, a very well-known brand in India, and it's always on a growth mode. Myntra has been it's always growing, and I wanted to understand from you, Sneha, how do you support your distributed workforce with targeted manager training? Because there are various layers in your organization, and managers play a very key role, and that goes across the seamless hybrid workplaces as well. And I'm sure you have rediscovered handling your workforce through the pandemic and through the Great Resignation era. My question to you is, how have you supported this distributed workforce?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on the panel. Pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to hearing perspectives from everyone on the panel as well. Yeah, so thanks for having me here. Again, very relevant topic, Bhuvna. I think all of us have gone through unprecedented times, right? And it's led to very large scale shift in terms of managing a very distributed, remote, a diverse workforce for most of the organizations. I think for us, the way we are set up is we had a certain teams on the ground, right? Deliveries have to be done that cannot be done remotely. Plus, we had other functions like technology, business, marketing, which could work remotely, right? So we've had a mix of teams working from home, whereas those working from office for a long time now. I think for us, the fundamentals have remained the same, right? I mean, it's ultimately people at the center of it. It's empathy and it's agility at the core of it, right? The way it manifested was different on the ground. It was about how do you provide a safe environment, safe transport, taking all of those measures to make sure that people feel reassured as well that the organization is behind them and will take care of them during the pandemic as well. For our remote workforce, wherever we could, we in fact started our working remotely even before the restrictions and lockdown and all of those things happened, just proactively to make sure that we are keeping our people safe. So I think during this time, what we also realized was that you can have the most nice, great policies, processes, all of that, right? But at the end of the day, managers and leaders are the core of it, right? And they play a very important role because people experience at the end of the day is shaped by their interactions, their managers, their leaders, and how they behave when they interact with employees. So we've invested consciously in a few things, right? Coming to the topic of training as well, what you mentioned, right? I mean, one is of course setting the tone from the top, right, from our CEO to all our leaders in terms of how should leaders and managers in the organization think about it when it comes to making even simple decisions, where an employee maybe needs time off to take care of their family, right, during the pandemic. So one, of course, is the entire policy part of it, which we looked at in terms of how do we care, how do we provide time off. In fact, during the second wave, we openly stood and told our employees that, look, it's okay if you miss a few deadlines. It's okay. We're not going to hold you accountable for your targets. Please take the time that you need. So I think that's where the tone really gets set from the top. Then the second piece is, of course, in this setup, it has to be digital, it has to be virtual. We couldn't take a risk of people coming to work. So we've trained all our managers on leading with empathy, that in these times, how do you manage a diverse workforce with very, very different needs, right? I mean, some have family members who are sick to take care of, some have children who need to go to the virtual school, you need to get the child started, right? And everybody has had very different circumstances. So that piece became very relevant for us. And in addition to that, right, I mean, it's also about your leadership skills. So we've continued on those journeys. So for our first line managers, for our midline managers, for our senior leaders as well, everybody went through these well-defined, thought through journeys on strategic thinking and other skills that we feel are relevant from a leadership standpoint, right? And we continue to do that, all digitally, short modules, keeping in view the times that we are in. And of course, the focus on self-learning in terms of providing those resources so that people could pick it up and continue to learn during these times. The third thing that we have done for our managers is that it's easy to provide content, right, which can to some degree be personalized. But that feedback of knowing what you are doing right and what's not working is also very important. So we have something called as a manager effectiveness index, which gets measured through a pulse survey every 6 months. And that is at a manager level. So as a manager, I know what's my team feeling, what's my team sensing. And of course, this is in addition to all the other connects and things that we do to have another sort of concrete and quantifiable index with us, which gives them direct feedback. I think lastly, as an organization, we have kept the listening channels open, whether it's engagement surveys, whether it's focus groups. We have a CEO chatbot where it's a milestone-driven chat, and also people can anonymously write to us in case there is still something which is not working for them, and our CEO directly has access to those messages as well. So we've done all of those connects and listen. I think net it's been a journey of listening and adapting quickly. I mean, none of us had a playbook. Nobody knew that how do you handle things at this scale through a pandemic. So it's really been, we've continued to listen. We have done a lot of pulse surveys, focus groups, connects, town halls, all of that, and we've adapted wherever we felt there's a need in terms of policy or in terms of infrastructure that people needed. We've launched policies on the go. So, for example, for our remote workforce, we launched Mitra for You when we heard that people were experiencing difficulties in having a setup at home, so that they could reimburse up to a certain limit in terms of the office setup itself, so that they're comfortable working from home. So we've done some of those things, Bhuvna, and yes, it's been a journey of learning and adapting and just being agile and providing the best that we can for our employees.
Thank you, Sneha. I mean, great learnings. I really love the manager effective index and that quantifiable index as well, because all of us, as you said, we're like literally groping in the dark, and understanding whether you're really moving in the right direction is also important. You can keep, throwing out initiatives for the employees. And I think the thing is shifted from thinking from the empathy part of it and thinking from an employee perspective is what is also changed. And that's what I'm hearing from you as well. And also this agility and agile with terms in workshops and, before the pandemic, and that's come to reality through this. And it's really interesting to know that from you as well. Because we just heard so much of, flexibility that Sneha spoke about as well. So the way forward from here, obviously, is to be focusing on balancing requests for flexibility, because that's become one of the important asks by employees. So while also keeping in mind the requirements of the business, that's another thing that organizations have struggled with. You want to give, the intent is there to provide the flexibility to the employees, but how do you really balance that collaboration within the team or across teams, and also keep the business perspectives in mind? So how are you managing this initiative, considering that you come from the insurance industry?
So thanks, Bhuvna. I think from an insurance perspective, let me say this has not been an easy thing for life insurance in particular as an industry. Life insurance, it's all about financial advisory. And financial advisory in India is a lot face-to-face conversations, and multiple conversations happening before you actually close a solution for the customer. Now, imagine that is what the whole industry has been working. And when the pandemic stuck, we had to reinvent ourselves. So the business requirement wouldn't change. The business requirement is we have to go out there and meet the customer expectation, but then you're just not able to meet the customer, right? You're not able to service the customer. Now, for what, so the reasons which we all know, right? So you're in a space where you as an organization have to reinvent with the demands of safety, flexibility, all at there. I think for a rewiring, the good part is somewhere, we had to reskill all our employees, practically 3,500 sales force, overnight. We had to reskill them for digital selling skills, we have to rewire all our processes from a business and a customer lens, which would allow them to work, remotely or flexibly. Some could be face-to-face, some could be, more would be digital and less face-to-face. I think so. Our ability to support the employees on reskilling them, the processes which got redefined, the tools which we gave people to collaborate across, teams within teams, because even if you are in the same city, right, you're not able to come together, and a lot of team meetings. So managers got equipped with new tools. We kind of invested in the tools to get people to come together. So those are some of the things which we started working, which allowed a bit of, support the flexibility which people required. One of the hardest group which we saw in the pandemic was the working women, right? The women who were mothers, who had schools, house, help is not there, school are flexible schedules. So I think somewhere we realized that's another big one. So created a whole, what you call a ERG, a resource group between women employees across the board. For the last 2 years, that's been helping each other to kind of support in the, and the flexibilities are more to do with, how you're equipping employees to tackle the situation which they are facing through. Now, as you keep doing that, where you keep creating flexible schedules, work timings are flexible, meetings not happening in the evening, right? Policies going through, as Sneha was alluding to, you created new policies, short-term sabbatical policies came into play, right? So, and now all of this is happening, right? Suddenly you realize that you also need to figure out, we are a place where we operate in a city, sales organization, customer, you have to go deeper, you have to go closer to the customer. Now, initially, when the full lockdown was there, we realized that people could travel anywhere in the country and operate from. Personally, I'm my headquarters in Bombay. I worked 6 months from Chandigarh, right? So that was okay till it was. So that flexibility is provided, not that I was not available and not working. But then you suddenly realize, as the markets are opening up, as face-to-face meetings are through, you would want people to come into your office through. And that's the discipline which you would want across. So we created a lot of conversations around, employees who kind of moved out of the cities to come back to the city, providing the support, what they require. A lot of them said, we can't travel in, we need sanitized places. So you created those transit places to stay. You created, a lot of counseling sessions came in, where people were not comfortable coming, families were not comfortable. So the HR team came together with the line managers, creating counseling sessions. The discipline space, sometimes you had managers coming back to you and saying, oh, people are not turning up for digital meetings. People are not, there in the cameras, they're doing some other work. Those are kind of feedbacks you start pouring in. These were nothing, known earlier. These are the new set of grievances which are coming up across. And then you start training not just the managers, but also the employees, why it is important for you to be logging in, why you have to get your cameras on. And somewhere or the other, we realized if people are not, yes, we kind of strengthened our grievance process, our disciplinary process. You have to balance even that. So people are not making, or hiding behind the flexible policies which we have created across. You find some set of people who would want to misuse that. So you kind of catch them early, kind of create that counseling and disciplinary space to get through. So I think those are some of the actions which we've kind of taken through. As much as you're able to create that environment and policies, certainly the requirement of the customer and the business is not getting compromised, and you're trying to bring it together, by reskilling, re-equipping people, providing them the tools, And somewhere or other, if you find a set of people who are kind of not want to misuse that, you need to just call it out, through. I think those are some of the things which we've been doing across, just to kind of ensure there's a balance between flexibility and the business requirement.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vikas. I think, yes, it's also been a time to have the difficult conversations with your employees. And you rightly said that, to call out people who are misusing the flexibility, that's been, I think, yeah, initially the thing was to get people getting used to the digital space. And then now it's come to a place where you get them to be productive, to be participating. And that's where the policies are also shifting, or, I mean, it's softer aspects of the policies of getting them to be on video, getting them to understand the necessity to be on video, and enabling them as well. I think organizations have also invested a lot of time and energy in enabling the employees to be digitally available and providing that flexibility. And I think both Sneha and you mentioned the changes in the policies that have, I mean, that nobody thought of even, changing policies, and that has come about in this era. And it's really important to retain your employees as well, and I think it's all coming up to, putting people before everything else and leading with that. I think that's what I'm hearing from both of you. Arijit, I think Vikas also mentioned the changes in the market, and the focus is shifting continuously. So in this changed market, the focus is also shifted with, leading with purpose, right? So could you share with us, how do you see leaders investing time into issues that matter to employees? And most of the time, you do hear about equity, purpose, DE&I initiatives. And are these really serving as retention strategies? Do you see that happening? And I, at least when I talk to even college kids, they say that they want to join an organization that has a purpose, right? So do you really see this being a retention strategy? What is your thought?
Thank you, Bhuvna, and thank you for inviting me for the session. I think it's a privilege, and I'm humbled with my introduction, really. But before I start our step backwards, I think it's a repetition of history, really. This type of changes and revolutions have happened earlier also in industries. Once we moved from manual to machinery to technology, and here on, and then the liberalization. So all these have triggered a lot of changes. But why this time the change is little difficult and little intangible, I would say, is because I think if you look at the reasons of resignations, we mostly have things like burnout, lack of flexibility, and this has been spoken by my earlier speakers, and I will probably try to not to repeat anything what they spoke about. And also I'll stick to my industry, which is the service industry. Okay, a disclaimer that whatever I talk has nothing to do with Nomura, so that's my industry norm basically. So I'll talk about the service industry mostly and the banking industry. But and so the reasons are burnout, lack of flexibility, lack of support, for employees' well-being. But the one that hits very hard and which is very difficult to figure out is something called the existential epiphany. And what I mean by that is that people have started a quest for themselves and their lives. They're trying to find out what they want to really do. This the legacy of pandemic has hit people so deeply. They have started questioning that is it work they're really running behind, or is it life they're really running behind? There was a time when our world used to revolve around our work. Now it's not really the same. And people at very young age have become more sensible and more mature, and they've started thinking, what do I need from my life? So I was talking to some campus graduates. They still are in that phase where they say that they want to work from office, they want to go to the new cities. But if you talk to people who are 3-4 years down the line from the campus, they have started thinking whether they would like to stay in big cities and big metros and work, or rather stay with their family, take care of their parents, because people have lost a lot in this whole process, and they have seen that happening. And I think that is one area which actually triggers off the concept of purpose, and it can create the connector really with the employer. Because if whatever you're doing doesn't match with what you want to do in life and what you see as Arijit being known for in the future, people will not connect. So I think the requirement really comes up from our industry perspective. I think we come from a very technology and a knowledge intensive industry. And the first year when we were hit by pandemic, and before that, before I come, I've got a little bit of global experience. So I would like to share this concept of work from home is a known concept outside India in developed countries. But in India, it's just a myth. It's a good to have thing, you know. Once in a while, somebody does work from home. There are 10 questions asked. You need to provide a medical certificate, all that. But now it has become a way of life. So it's a big change for us. And we should not compare ourselves with other countries because the thought process is different. The way of doing things are different. So for our industry, which is very knowledge intensive and a technology based industry, the first year went out, you know, just exploring whether we can deliver efficiency or not. It's the second year when we started realizing we can efficiently deliver from a home, but new problems started cropping up on mental well-being, then physical well-being, balance, and all that stuff. So I think this actually leads us to a lot of opportunities, and why I think on one hand the problem is intangible and more difficult to handle. On the other hand, it's also a good opportunity for us because it's leading to a transformation. And our industry particularly is going through a lot of transformation in this process. And for starters, really, I would like to say that, you know, when there is a transformation in an industry, there's a lot of communication that happens. There is a lot of buy-in that needs to happen. So a lot of effort goes into that. But here it's driven from the employee side, the change. So it becomes easier for organizations to run the transformation agenda and to change the way things have been done. So this is the time to explore things like equity, purpose, D&I. And we are also doing the same thing in our industry. Something you know, that interestingly that comes to my mind, which I think we should do, is that we are more or less we are more focused on creating a business vision. Probably it's time to really start doing a people's vision. That, you know, when I join a company, what is the vision they have for me as a person, as a professional, from my career perspective. I think that will become critical going ahead, and that people will start associating themselves with it and become a good attracting factor for employees. And it could be anything, you know, you get a great life, you get a great purpose. So we would like to develop something like that so that we can attract our people, and it has to be very very personalized, in the sense that if you are belonging to a bank, particular X bank, it should portray the image of that bank really, so that I get associated with that image and I identify myself. So that association and the purpose should align more. And this the other thing on the D&I perspective, I think what better time to explore D&I initiatives? People, you can now go to tier 2, tier 3 cities to employ people, and they can work from there. You can give a better life to, as somebody said, you know, for women employees, it's a great opportunity, and we should explore that. And there, in our industry, a lot of women have come back to corporate life, seeing these opportunities have opened up. People are working from different parts of the world, different parts of India, going back to their hometown and working. And I think so. These are the broad areas I guess we are exploring right now, and absolutely these are the 3 key items we need to focus and review and revisit to make it more make ourselves more employable. But I guess, you know, before I end my talk, I still want to say that we should not react. We should wait and watch the space, because today, if our attrition numbers have crossed 20%, 25%, 26%, who knows? Maybe going ahead it becomes a norm, because a lot of different options are coming out, like contingent workers, gig workers, people starting their own business, people coming, injecting their work and going back. So startups. So we should wait and watch this space. We should stay close to our employees and listen to what they want really. The word flexibility is very broad. You can say you can work 2 days from office, 3 days from home, but is it exactly what your employees work? Or do they want to define their own workspace? So, you know, you have to listen to the employees, understand what is there in their mind, and then design your policies. So instead of hurrying up and reacting to the resignation, I think we should wait and watch this space, and, you know, go with the pace, with the norm basically. So that's all from my side. I tried not to repeat anything.
No, you did not. Thank you, Arijit. I think that's a very different perspective to bring in and say, wait and watch, let's not react. And, you know, that's a different way to look at it also. And yeah, I agree that organizations are in a hurry to resolve this and solution this in their own way. And I think it's become a continuation of handling the pandemic, you know, also, right? So it's being attached to that, and therefore the organizations are trying to solution before it becomes a bigger issue. But your perspective is very different, and I just wanted to add that even though work from home for India was a very different concept, I think the way Indians adapted to the change was phenomenal, right? I mean, we were faster to adapt. I think US struggled quite a bit to adapt to the work from home. They struggled with getting laptops on time, the connections. I was surprised because some of my friends and colleagues in the US were talking about bandwidth not being available, whereas India adapted like this. And I do see kids continuing to be taking online classes even now with so much of ease. I think that's one advantage India has of quickness, agility, and adaptiveness. So I think we are set in a good way. So from there, I want to pose a question to Rajesh. Um, Rajesh, owing to the space of this exodus, right? All our panelists shared a few of the changes they've been making to the policies and the mindset and all that. But how do you think the top leadership should change their mindset to realign the vision around talent management itself? And I'm sure there are quick fixes, and there is something to the long term as well. So what have you been doing in your organization, industry, or what are your thoughts on that?
So as we say in leadership, self-awareness is foundation of wisdom. So what we did during the pandemic, in the first quarter itself, we did 360-degree feedback for all 150 plus leaders, that how they are being perceived by the ecosystem. And it was a revelation to many of them, because many of them were championing employee engagement, but their rating itself was on the lower side. So, and of course, people tend to perceive themselves in a positive way, so self-assessment is different. So it helped at least them building their own level, how they are being perceived. At the same time, what we have done as an organization also, that resignation numbers everybody is talking about. But when you slice the same pie, then you get different insights. So I'll give examples. See, source-wise attrition, if we did, then we found out the people who are joining from referral, their attrition is hardly 10 or 11%. So what we did, the referral as a source was 9%. You won't believe in 3 quarters, we have moved it to 40%. And we are going to move it to 60%. So it's also about the kind of talent you want and will stick with you. So that is one significant change management we did at organization level, that the source, what kind of people are attracting. Secondly, as a fresher level also, while we had a very good campus program, but now we have institutionalized that any fresher who is going to join us is mandatorily going to have an internship with us, including in HR. As we speak, we have institutionalized global HR internship program with more than 20 interns working in the HR function alone. 2 in Germany, 1 in US, 15 in India. So the reason again is that they kind of get to know our ecosystem, because all said and done, a company will retain its unique characteristic. It is very difficult to know fundamentally different from what you have been. So we also kind of assess the people that who are going to adapt to our ecosystem, who are demonstrate learnability. So that is on attract piece. On develop piece, we were already very much committed that we are going to build a talent pipeline using internal talent. So our internal promotion ratio was always 70%. Now we are going to push the boundary further, making it 80% and 90% level at leadership level, because we also realized, when we look again at the data, that if we have hired leaders from outside, half of them either they leave early, or even if they stick around, they don't add value for the same reason. Navigating the ecosystem, making it the meaningful relationship with the colleagues, and also finding it out what works in the ecosystem. The third piece of the talent management is the retention piece, which I already said. So it's also linked to attract and develop piece. So the people whom we promote, what we have seen, their attrition is again half. So if I take any lead level position, I say the people who have hired from outside and people who have promoted from within, hired from outside again is living in double numbers, and promoted from within again are not living. So it's kind of, one is that the whole decision-making process around analytics at micro level also. So while we say that, okay, company attrition is a 20% point, how come in some of the accounts or the segments the attrition is 10% and somewhere it's 40%? Because by and large, you see the compensation is standardized within the same company. The benefits also are standardized. Little bit of variation. So what is it, that variation? And that brings it down to that famous Harvard study, right? The single most important ingredient to happiness is quality of close relationships. So already, I think my previous colleagues have addressed the relationship you form with the manager and with the colleagues. That is more important than with the leaders, I believe. So what we did, we have changed our performance management process itself. Earlier, it's typical performance management. It used to be, top down. You set the KRAs, manager as a mid-year review, and then the year-end review. Now what we are saying that 360-degree view of performance management is going to come. So manager is going to get feedback from all team members anonymously every year. And they are going to get feedback also from 3 or 4 peers. Again, on those behaviors which we expect everybody within the organization to demonstrate. So it's a learning curve, but I will say 2 points more from now. We should also learn from the best in the globe and best in industry. So if I see outside, unfortunately, I keep saying now, if you go to the famous movie progeria is that ailment. So you think a lot, but your limbs are weak. Indian state is almost like that. It has so many ideas, so many plans, but it cannot execute. And that is how this lockdown and all the associated things happen. If you take the example of Germany, I'll just say, because some of the colleagues will know how they handled this so well. Because I know as an employer, KPIT got salary at one point of time for 200 employees in KPITians. German government was paying it because you don't lay off the people. Here, government simply give the mandate and no support. Secondly, not only for the business, also they went to the extent of giving support in the terms of tax rebate, as well as the rent support and all the moratorium, what has been done for a long term. So we should, I wish that as a state, we also learn that what is other states have done, capable states have done, and not do a lot of marketing and positioning around the things which have not worked, but still we don't face the hard reality the hard way. And secondly, within the India also, I will take two companies, because when we study the quarterly report, these numbers we see. So Tata Elxsi is a great example. I mean, I have, if you see the numbers, their attrition is still 13%. TCS itself, with more than now 450,000 employer, attrition is again 10-11%. And to their credit, they have maintained this last whole decade. In the great resignations also, they are there. So it's a learning for us also, that how they have been able to foster trust. I will conclude with that the leaders also have a responsibility to foster trust. And that you will foster when people will see how you behave in crisis. If you give very talk rhetorics and in the first quarter of the revenue down, you lay off employees, then people will see the true color. And this is how, unfortunately, quarter to quarter, most of the companies have been living, and they are facing the heat from people. Because people see that all this is just empty rhetoric. In the times of crisis, I have to fend for myself. Then why not I will choose somebody when I can get a better compensation? So I think overall, it's a learning experience for us. But like I said, I think on the attract, retain, and develop all 3 P's, we have moved the needle. And that is reflected in the valuation of KPIT. I mean, if you see, it is one of the star performers in last 1 year. Our share price has gone up by 10 times in a year. I keep saying my people that no, I was a fool, I did not invest. Otherwise, I would have invested 1 year back, and my retirement corpus was ready in 1 year itself. So yeah, it's a learning experience. I hope that not only we learn from within our ecosystem, but outside ecosystem and outside India also, because some of like I said, Germany is a great role model of how to handle the pandemic from the all stakeholders point of view.
Thank you, Rajesh. I hope you've invested now and you make more money. Yeah, but you did bring about, interesting points. The quality of the close relationships, that is really important, because we also observe this in a Transtat that when you score, right, the leadership scores are always pretty high. And, when you ask them about their colleagues, that's what they really want to foster, the relationship. And they want to learn more from their colleagues. They want that relationship because that's who they work with on a day-to-day basis. And that's really important. And trust has become a really important word in every organization. And it's important for leaders to showcase that also. It's not just about developing that, but also to ensure that that is being seen and communicated as well. So very, very important points. And from there, I want to, talk about how can leaders design an effective return to work roadmap? And what are the stepping stones in this journey? Sneha, if I may come to you on that, what have you done?
Sure, Bhuvna, I think Mr. Vikas and Mr. Arijit referred to it as a burnt out workforce. I'll also quote Laszlo Bock, who says it's a fatigued and fragile workforce after everything that people have gone through in the past couple of years now, right? And I think it's important not to underestimate the transition, right? Coming back after working remotely for such a long time. And then I think it's also important to address some of these vulnerabilities. So I think the first thing is really that organization should be able to define the need, right? I mean, why do you need to have people back in office, right? Because it doesn't matter if somebody is going completely remote, if somebody is working completely from office. I think it's ultimately what works for you as an organization. It's easy to go after the best practices because somebody else is doing it, but you really need to define what works for you. I think for us, what we have done is we're going the hybrid way. We are trying to get back in a way so that we get the best of both worlds in terms of people being able to come to work and that sense of cohesion building. But at the same time, everybody has realized that they value the flexibility that remote working provides. So doing that as well, and in a phase-wise transition, right? So we will eventually get to a 3+2 kind of a model where 3 days is at work and 2 days is remote working. The second part, right, as a principle, going back to what I was saying earlier, that organizations do need to have phases in the roadmap, right? I mean, we saw one fine day, lockdown was imposed and everybody started working from home, and that was pretty abrupt, right? And nobody saw this going on for such a long time. I thought 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we'll be all back, right? So, and I think most people did that. So it's also important to have these phases. For example, what we are doing is we are starting out by saying that, let's start with a 2+3 model. So we'll be in office for 2 days and then, 3 days work remotely before we transition into a 3+2 kind of a model to give people a seamless sort of transition. What we are also cognizant of is that many people went back to their hometowns, right? And there are some people who went to some exotic locations to work as well. You have colleagues working from Goa and Coorg and whatnot. So giving them a transition time as well, because if you don't have a house in Bangalore anymore, you've wrapped up your flats and apartments and all of that. So giving a longer time frame there as well to allow for a phased return. So we're giving a 90-day kind of a window where people can come back and settle down if you're not in Bangalore. And more than 50% of our workforce is actually not, when we did a survey, what we found out. Then I think the third one really is the empathy part of it as a principle, right? We are planning for hiccups, right? When people start coming back to office environment, how do we help them streamline some of this, right? I mean, people have children, daycare, schools, all of those pieces. How does that fall into place? We have an on-site childcare as well. How do we get that operational as soon as we can, with, of course, the government guidelines permitting us? So we're trying to plan for some of those hiccups as well, where we have a diverse workforce. Everybody has their unique needs, and some of these things we are predicting already, that people with medical conditions, people women who are expecting parents. So we are planning for some of these, but again, there are some which we may not be foreseeing today. So we're trying to be flexible around that and build that into our model as well. And I think the last one is the culture part of it, right? And some of the other panelists referred to it, that how do we rebuild that sense of cohesion? Right, most of the organizations, I think 30 to 50% of the organization is new. People who completely joined remotely, they've never seen the office, they've never met their manager, they've never met their colleagues, right? So it's literally sort of rebuilding the working norms, rebuilding the culture. How do we create those conscious platforms to connect, so that they get to meet their colleagues? Mr. Rajesh was referring to it earlier, that it's about people getting to know each other, not just about management and leadership. So really rebuilding those platforms, and we are planning for those pieces as well, in terms of how do we manage our culture, rebuild and nurture it as people start returning to work. So I think the last one, I think Mr. Rajesh mentioned it in terms of course correction, right? We're not going to get this right on day one. So one, letting people know that, okay, we are trying this out. We're going to revisit in 6 months. We'll take your feedback and then we'll adapt as we need to. And keeping ears to the ground, right? I mean, that's where to hear these scenarios, to hear what's coming up, to really be in that place where we know and are able to adjust quickly and adapt quickly as our people return to work. So that's how we are kind of looking at it in terms of return to office. Yes, I think it's exciting, but at the same time, given what everybody has gone through, we are not trying not to underestimate it at all, but cover from all of these perspectives in terms of people with their unique needs, and how do we continue the sentiment of care and people centricity that we've really followed over the past 1.5 years.
Yeah, completely agree, Sneha. I think one is we're holding hands with each other, the leadership team, and then holding hands of the employees as well. And it's important. And believe it or not, I'm meeting my entire team tomorrow for the first time. I joined Randstad during the pandemic, and I'm yet to meet my entire team. And we've been just, working through virtual, connects, and still doing a good job, I should say. The team is really great, and Randstad has been very warm as well in that sense. So I'm very privileged to have been one of those people who have been part of the experiment, if I can say so, right? So it's been an interesting year for me also. Vikas, just coming back to you on the same question, what are your, what is the design that you have in your industry? And after this, I'd like to take a few questions from the audience. We have a few questions, and we'll go to that.
Sure. I think I'm just going to emphasize the point on empathy. So what we have been working with our leaders is to bring empathy in when you come back to office, when employees are coming back. It's a hybrid model, but you create us 1+4, 2+3, 3+2. I mean, those models are there. We were kind of created that, but we realized very quickly, possibly on day one, end of the day, that this model is not going to work, because one size is not going to fit any one of our employees, right? So there are employees who want to be 5 days at home, right? Because young kids, they don't want to come back. I mean, they don't have that support system. And there are places like in Bombay, houses are not equipped to work from home. I mean, you'll stay in a small place, and the people were, employees were dying to come to office. They want to come 5 days to office. So, so I think that's the kind of flexibility you kind of building it, trying to understand each and every employee's perspective, to kind of build into their return to, office. And slowly we kind of also realized as people there's a lot of inertia, right? Of travel coming to, traveling in a local Bombay is not easy. It's like traveling from one city to another. So you kind of getting them out. Now there has to be reason to come to office. Work is happening. 1.5 years, you kind of work from home 100%. Why would you want to come through? So you kind of create those. So we started a corporate office, in September. I'll just give you, how we kind of created those small moments. I personally, so I'm a September born, right? So coincidentally, I was like last 2 years, I was in, at home. Everyone is digitally wishing me everything. I said, I'm sick and tired of digital wishes. By design, I said, I'm going to go be, in office, celebrate with people, actual people, my birthday there, and it just happened to be, the office opened, and we kind of had a great bash at, a simple cake in the center, 100 people coming on the floor. So otherwise you would have done in a small room, then you did it on the floor. And you could see, I personally felt elated, and I could see the smile on, and I'm talking as an employee right now, right? So you go through the same feeling. I don't remember any of my birthdays in the last 15, 18 years, which I would have celebrated in office. I felt so nice about it, right? And suddenly, we made that viral in our office, the people who come, okay, I want to be in office to celebrate my birthday, like you said, you just joined in the pandemic. You have a lot of employees who join in pandemic. Normally you would do day one, you'll give a bouquet, you'll kind of do a team, come together wishing. We suddenly realized, no, that's not happening. So we saw a lot of our employees who are visiting office for the first time in 1.5 years. Now that day has become a special day for them. So can we make a special day for them? These are those small things of fun, creating a sense of belonging, so that there is something to look forward to, for an employee to come to office, those moments of coffee conversations. So anyway, you are doing social distancing, you have a lot of space within office now created, but you need to bring those chit chats back rather than doing a digital. You create those tea conversation, coffee conversations within, which used to happen, right, earlier. I think those are the smaller things which are also happening. And these are all getting led by leaders, managers who are kind of getting people to come in, getting them to more welcoming to office through. And these are something which we will have to consciously do more of. As this inertia to come out of or step out of home to office happens through. So these are small things which we've been working through.
Absolutely, because I think it's also connecting to what Arijit was talking about, the existential epiphany, and and cherishing the moments that you are coming together. And I think that's become a human phenomenon as well, right? It's not just the office, but when you're seeing relatives, you're celebrating more and more than you did earlier, and eating cake every time you're in office. That's become a usual thing. Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the audience questions. I'll start with the question for Arijit. I'll combine a few questions because it's similar in nature. So Arijit, Ajay and Shibu have questions on how can we personalize the people vision and cascading of the same? And they agree with what you said. And I believe that vision is caught and not taught in such unprecedented times such as this as HRs. What are the few things that we must do to be vision driven? That's the question for you, Arijit.
Thank you. It's a great question. Thank you very much. And I would refer to what Rajesh said, and I strongly believe in that. Now, word of caution before you get into creating a vision, be focused on your data. What is the data saying? Don't go only with the perceptions. You look at your resignation data, you look at your attrition data, what is the people wanting, what is the exit interview saying, and understand it very clearly. So don't do anything just for the sake of it. That is first word. So stay close to the data, understand the data. Second is that be close to the industry. What is the industry looking at? Because at the end of the day, you're losing people to the industry. So what is the other industry providing which you are not providing? The third thing which I would say is that it has to be linked to your business. It just can't be a people's vision which is not connected to your business. So on one hand, there's a business, one hand there's a people, and people run the business. So they need to, because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing is for profit generation, and you need to adhere to that. Otherwise, it will never fly. We sometimes in HR get very emotional and passionate about things, but we don't realize that it has to be connected to the business outcome, which we avoid. So this is the third thing which you need to do. And regarding people's vision, try to understand what they want. As I said, existential epiphany. It is a very deep-rooted word. This thing has, what I see is that people at the age of 30, 35 have started thinking like people who are 45 plus. They've started questioning their life. But I myself, when I was of that age group, never thought on those lines. So this change has happened, this very deep-rooted change, and this provides a lot of opportunity. Talk to people, understand what they want, sit with them, and try to create something like that. And I cannot prescribe, because what works for my company may not work for another company, or may not work for any company. So these are some of the ground rules which you must follow to create something. And as I said, don't create something which is short-term in nature. Create a long-term one which is deep-rooted, and people should associate with it. So it should create an identity of the organization as well as the people who are working to it. So those two has to align and marry with each other to run the show really. So have I answered your question really, or have I missed out anything?
I mean, I'm sure you answered the question, Arijit. I don't think the audience can react, but if they can type it on the Q&A, then we'll know if they have any further questions. Rajesh, this question is for you, and it's from Shashikala. We really appreciate your point of view considering the environment dynamics in state where we are operating and prefer not to react but act. Kindly let us know any specific steps taken by your company during this pandemic for on the field colleagues, those cannot be given work from home.
See, we have that way, we are lucky. I keep saying that IT industry is lucky because all of us can just work from home, unlike manufacturing or say hotel or restaurant or aviation, they were really impacted. But having said that, in IT also, there are 3 to 4% employees in my organization and other organizations where there is a work on hardware dependency. So this either client will not allow you to work, or people have to come to office. So for them, what are the things we can do? And then maybe same thing can be replicated. So few things we did for, I will say in general for all employees. Once we knew that the pandemic is here to stay and the mortality is going to be high, So we reintroduced COVID insurance for parents, in-laws, and we gave a family floater of 2 million rupees also, because we did not want to be in the situation that somebody is having critical ailment and the person has to go and seek loan or things like that. So first, why that, no, we give them the protection of the medical insurance itself, significant to everybody in the family. And also what we did that we introduced some sort of rotation, the people who have to come to office. So it's not necessarily that you have to come to office for all 12 months. No, some 2-3 months, one set of people come with the similar set of skill, other people will come and then they will do. But most importantly, like I said, no, for in all three pieces, I don't want to make lose the larger picture in mind, and Arijit rightly said. So whether it is attract, retain, and develop, one is a simple benchmarking exercise. And like I said, India, you benchmark. I mean, you can say I can benchmark with Bangladesh. Somebody made a comment also, but Bangladesh per capita income even is higher than India. So that also for us to learning that in 7 months they have crossed us. But what is the benchmark? So ITVC, the benchmark is TCS in attrition. I mean, they publish the numbers unlike any other, right? You see 9%, 10% continuously since a decade they have been doing it. So what is the learning for us as an organization, right? Similarly, you can see for the develop also, some industries create talent factory. All the leadership is internally and somewhere they don't. So I think whether it is the field force or whether it is the people who are coming in office, the value proposition, I think the previous speakers also have spoken. It has to be a little bit customized what the people want in their life. And if we give them what they are looking for, then I think there is no reason why the talent will not stay with us for a long time.
Absolutely. And this question, either Vikas or Sneha can take, what would be the critical elements of the employer brand of a company in the COVID world in order to attract and retain workforce?
That's quite interesting. Actually, we did a lot of work during COVID on employer brand. You know, incidentally, we launched our employer proposition or employee proposition just before the lockdown, right? So, and I think one of those initiatives which kind of actually led us to be a great place to work, and the outcomes have been really great for us. I think somewhere a lot is happening where people are spending a lot of time with themselves, the whole idea of connecting with purpose. And for us, our proposition has been discover and live, you know, discover your edge and live your edge, right? So we kind of help you discover your edge as an employer, right? And the edge is all about your unique, you know, dreams and aspirations, and we will help you achieve those dreams and aspirations. Now, that's our proposition, right? And that proposition is also linked to our overall, you know, purpose and vision, which is about taking responsibility of, you know, protecting dreams and aspirations of people in India, which is like from an insurance perspective, right? You take that. Now, as you make that whole employer brand, you personalize it to the individual. Now, what do we do along with it? We went across having career aspiration conversation, which each and every employee, the managers got equipped, how to conduct those conversations. Once the conversations got created, you know, we created a, you know, development plans for each and every employee to meet those career aspirations. Now, they're all flowing from our, you know, employee brand, you know, proposition, which we've created through of the edge. As we started doing that, we realized there's a section of people who want to do something beyond, you know, they want to discover something very different. We created a program around which we already had, you know, Unlimited Umang, which is all about going beyond work. Now you have a set of people who said we want to pursue our interest beyond work, you know, onto social, you know, areas. We said, fine, we anyway had a very strong Edelgive Foundation, and we created that program around it. Now, each and every segment of what an employee wanted to, you know, do is something got customized, personalized to what our proposition has been, right? To support those, you know, we also have what we call our leadership development programs, which came into play of how to support the proposition which we have of growth. Growth is a big proposition. So the development plans of leadership came into play. We got into creating special programs for women leadership, which, you know, was helping them to grow in the organization. So all in all, and the pandemic really helped in a way, because the conversations were a lot truthful with, individuals were having, because that was triggered by the employee themselves. And that's a conversation we had earlier where we said the employee is now triggering that conversation. It is becoming easier for us as an organization today to kind of carry that conversation and provide that solution what they're requiring. And that's how we're kind of bringing our whole employee proposition alive in the last 2 years across.
Thank you, Vikas.
Very, very relevant these days to see talent brand is ultimately the personality of the organization, right? And it's not just to attract people, is to make sure that you're putting the right message out there, so you attract people who are the right fit for you. And that's what we've done as well over the past couple of years, I'd say, through the pandemic. Really look at our own selves and what do we stand for, what do we offer, and try to put that out there in terms of really attracting the people that we think would be the best fit for Myntra and helping them discover us as well. So I'll keep it short. I know we are on top of the hour as well.
Thank you, Sneha. And very, very interesting perspective. Yes, we are over time. I think the topic is such that we didn't realize an hour has gone by, and I'm sure all of us can speak for another hour on this. Great learnings and very clear points that come through are, people want to work for and do business with organizations that strive for a people-first culture. That's come through clearly in all your points. And any organization that creates a great experience for the candidates and employees is set to thrive. And the one that's striving to maintain a healthy balance, I see that across industries and organizations as well. And let your employees showcase your purpose, right? And let them feel that they belong. Another interesting point that came through is foster trust. The leadership needs to foster trust, and that's when employees are going to be able to, retain or see that they are also being trusted. And I really love what Arijit said, wait and watch. That can happen if you have the time. And also the special focus on ED&I, Vikas mentioned. And I love the CEO chatbot idea, Sneha, that you have brought about in your organization that allows for listening to the employees and, in an anonymous way as well. That's really important in this era. And I think all of us are continuously asking the question of what are we doing here? And that self-awareness at the manager and leadership levels is also very, very important. And learning from each other, I think that's what we've all done today, and learning from other organizations or learning from the West. It doesn't matter where you're learning from. I think that's going to be really important to keep our eyes and ears open as we move forward into a new year, hopefully a better year, and with newer learnings as well. Thank you so much, all of you, for spending this amount of time. And I want to give it back to Soumya.
Thank you so much, Bhuvna. That was absolutely fantastic. And a big thank you to Arijit, Sneha, Vikas, Rajesh. I think this was truly a live wire conversation. And like Bhuvna said, we didn't realize that it was already 60 minutes and we are running over time. So thank you so much. I think we really enjoyed the way it was structured. There is so much that the audience will take back today. So thank you once again. And yes, I always love to close these sessions with a quote, if I would say. So Jackson Browne had once said that the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. So I think that is something that we all actually agreed. And that is the best intent that came out in this session. So thank you once again, everyone. And to our audience, you have been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to express my gratitude to Randstad India and Economic Times HR World's team, who are not on the camera, but they have really worked tirelessly to put this session across. Thank you so much once again, and have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.